Good morning. Thank you so much to come to this session, Land of Opportunities. I'm Candy from City University of Hong Kong. I will let Eric to introduce himself.
I'm Eric from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University.
So in this session, what we are going to do is, first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about Hong Kong in general. In the last 2 days, I've actually visited some schools, and also in this conference, I met with lots of counselors. Many of those counselors approach us and saying, oh, we have student interest in Hong Kong, but we don't know much about Hong Kong. So that's why I would like to spend like around 10 or 15 minutes to talk about Hong Kong in general. And then both myself and Eric would talk about CTU and Polytechnic University separately. So first of all, Hong Kong, why not? I think, there are reasons why you should encourage your students to consider Hong Kong. Let's look at the location of Hong Kong. I believe that many of you have been to Hong Kong before. Hong Kong is located within 4 hours to all of the Asia key markets. Within 5 hours flying time, we can reach from half of the world population. Based on Hong Kong government statistics, currently there are 3,800 multinational companies. They have their regional offices set up in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong is also seen as third leading financial center after London and New York. All these opportunities actually providing students, whenever they graduated, to look for opportunities in Hong Kong, particularly the employment opportunities. Let's look at the institutions in Hong Kong. Do you know how many public universities in Hong Kong? Any one of you know that? No idea. Okay, public university, we have 8 of them. City University of Hong Kong, we have Baptist University, Lingnan University, Chinese University of Hong Kong, and Education University of Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and the University of Hong Kong. Actually, all these 8 institutions are public funded, so we receive funding from Hong Kong government. In terms of reputation and world rankings, you might see in the past 10 years, actually, out of these 8 institutions, 5 of them are actually rise very fast in the world rankings. So out of the 8, 5 institutions are actually ranked by QS in around top 100 institutions in the world. And I would say that Hong Kong government actually set aside generous amounts of money to provide funding for Hong Kong institutions. In 2015 and 16 alone, the recurrent expenditure from Hong Kong government for the 8 institutions is estimated at US dollar 9.2 billion, which accounting 1/5 of the total expenditure of Hong Kong government. So that's why most of the Hong Kong institutions, we can attract really renowned academics from around the world to work in Hong Kong, to do research and teaching. So in terms of attracting international academic faculty, we do have the competitive edge compared with those institutions in the US, UK, Canada. So in terms of quality education, Hong Kong, many institutions, we provide quality education, but relatively with lower cost of studying. So let's look at the numbers. Also in QS, actually they ranked Hong Kong as 8th best student cities. Our medium of instruction in most of the Hong Kong institutions, actually we taught the course in English. parents, whenever they send their kids out of the country, I think safety is one of the big concern for many parents. But Hong Kong, I think we are actually very safe. Amongst, you can see on this chart, among the major cities, Hong Kong probably is the most safest place in the world. Also, I think we all know that in the next 10 or 20 years, China is going to be the most growing economic power in the world. That means actually there will be lots of opportunities in Hong Kong as well as in China. Hong Kong is a very unique place. It's probably a place that you couldn't find elsewhere because we have the Western influence and we have the Chinese culture. So I think students, if they are interested in, be in the Asia, Hong Kong probably is one of the locations that they should consider. So when talking about opportunities for international students, earlier on I mentioned on the course of studying. Here I would like to say, actually, as I mentioned, we are public universities. Actually, we are regulated by the Hong Kong government. We can't recruit as much as we wanted. We are actually capped by the Hong Kong government. Each of the university can only recruit 20% of our undergraduate students. So they are not a large number. So that's why a lot of Hong Kong institutions recruiting students are not really for financial reasons. We are recruiting quality students to attract students to study in Hong Kong institutions and internationalize our campus. So in terms of cost of studying, the tuition fee to study in most of the Hong Kong university, it ranges from 15,000 to 18,000 per year. If it's including costs of living, it's about 20,000 US to 25,000 US a year. So compare with studying in the US, Australia, and Canada, I believe that you all are very familiar what would be the cost looks like. So many of our Hong Kong institutions, we provide generous scholarships to international students. Take CTU as a sample. We actually, every year, we admit around 20-something Indian students. I think almost like half of those students will receive partial scholarship from CTU. So I think it happens to all other Hong Kong institutions as well. And, students come to Hong Kong to study, they will think about their future. So many students, after they study at the institutions in Hong Kong for undergraduate program, they actually stay and further pursue their master or PhD degree in Hong Kong. Why? Because Hong Kong government actually also provide very generous funding for PhD students. So we have this Hong Kong PhD fellowship scheme. So annually, students, if they pursue a PhD degree in Hong Kong institutions, they are getting like 30,000 US annual stipend from the Hong Kong government. On top of that, they will also be getting some additional money for attending conferences, doing research papers. So these are pretty attractive to many international students. After their undergraduate study, they stay in Hong Kong and further pursue their PhD degrees. In Hong Kong, I think not only in Hong Kong, I think nowadays in the 21st century, if the graduate only had a university degree, looking for a job or employment is no longer competitive. So in Hong Kong, most of us have arranged a student exchange program with renowned institutions from around the world. So the purpose is to provide students with international exposure, to have some wider exposure overseas. So based on 2014 and 15 numbers, you can see all the 8 institutions, actually we have 6,200 inbound, incoming international students from around the world. And then we send out more or less the same number of students to overseas. So this chart, I don't know whether you can see, basically these are the bar charts of the 8 Hong Kong institutions. I think CTU, PolyU, Hong Kong UST, Chinese U, we actually, because of a student number are more, so we are able to receive a lot more international students as well as sending out a lot more of our students to study abroad. So apart from student exchange opportunities, what else do we provide? Actually, different institutions has different kind of short-term international exposure provide to our undergraduate students. So these will include, as short as a week's program or, longer in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. Some are credit-bearing, some are non-credit-bearing. But typically, I think I'm going to tell you a little bit more in my presentation about CTU's example. But typically, I think each of the institutions will more or less, for these international exposure, at least I think at CTU, we are paying 60% of the funding to the students to enable them to go out. And student will only be responsible for 40%. So Eric may share his institution's experience, but all these actually international exposure, the purpose, we wanted to enhance students' competitive edge after their graduation, their communication skills, leadership skills, cooperation skills, working as a group. Because after graduation, we believe that students working alone or anybody working alone would not be the case. So they will be in the company working with people from diverse background. So how to grab this skill sets while they are in undergraduate education is very important. So we all provide actually different opportunities. When I mentioned leadership program, this are also, university will invest money. And also majority of the funding are actually funded by the universities. Grants. Both, I think the Education Bureau in Hong Kong is the government body. They provide certain funding to higher education institutions. And the University Grants Committee is the funding body for the 8 public university. They also provide additional funding each year for us to do some programs. So I'm going to share a little bit more later on this. As I mentioned, apart from those soft skills, I think one important thing as well in Hong Kong, most of the institutions would provide students with on-campus work as well as internship opportunities. Basically, starting from 2007, actually Hong Kong government did relax the immigration policy, including the work arrangements. So it's a little bit, I think it's open up to all the international students. They can work during semester or even during summer to take up on-campus work in the universities. Internship, of course, some of the internship actually are built into the curriculum. Some internship are actually, depending on students' wish, arranged by individual college or programs separately. And as I mentioned, the favorable policy from Hong Kong government. So starting from 2009, students actually would have a 12 months visa fee period to look for employment in Hong Kong. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the our students, our alumni from India after their graduation, where they've gone. But I just want to have a very quick look at what are these international students do after their graduation. This is applicable, I think, to most of the Hong Kong institutions. Nearly half of those students would actually stay in Hong Kong to seek for employment. As I mentioned that Hong Kong has 3,800 multinational companies. There are plenty opportunities. So most of these students, they can be in the big four accounting firms, multinational companies like Hong Kong Bank, other multinational companies as well. And other half, or nearly half, as you can see from this pie chart, so they are going to pursue their master degrees or PhD either in Hong Kong or they go abroad to typically, I think, to the US and UK, those Ivy League institutions, as well as UK, Canada as well. Okay, I'm now going to hand it over to my colleague Eric to talk about Polytechnic University.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Candy. And what's next? I will spend 15 minutes to talk about PolyU, what opportunities we offer to your students if they come to PolyU to study that undergraduate program. So first of all, I would like to talk a little bit more about PolyU first to give a brief introduction. So, PolyU ranks 6th in the top QS 50 under 50. So you may wonder, is PolyU a young university? No, definitely not. PolyU established back in 1937. Of course, when we established this institution, it was a polytechnic. We trained technical people. Engineering is one of the founding faculty. But back in 1994, because we offer a bachelor program, master's program, PhD programs, do a lot of research, so that's why the government, granted us the status as the university, and we became a full-fledged university right now. So, of course, if you look at the overall ranking of PolyU, we rank like 100 in the world. But if you look at particular subjects, we have 8 subjects that rank top 50 in the world by the subject ranking, and we have a very diverse student background. We have a 38. We have a lot of students, more than 1,000 from 38 different countries. And one of the unique characteristics of our program is we encourage and we emphasize learning by doing, because students not here just to study, but they also need to, really have some hands-on experience. And most important, all programs in English. So these are, the nationality represented in our student body. As you can see, quite a lot from different continents. So we have 8 faculties, although we are called Polytechnic University. We are very comprehensive. So we have the first faculty is the Applied Science and Textile, and you may find it, why we have textiles. So we used to have, some very interesting subjects like fashion design, merchandising, but now we put it under the Applied Science because there are a lot of research on the materials. So that's why we put this under the Applied Science and Textile. Still, if your students are interested in fashion design, we still have a very famous fashion design program. We have the business school, accredited by AACSB and EQUIS. If you attend the session yesterday by other speakers, you will know that apart from ranking, accreditation of the program, of the business program is very important because it's a proof of the business education quality. So we established as a technical college, so that's why we have a very, very big engineering school. It's as big as we need to separate it into 2 faculties. So the first one is the construction and environment, focus on all the building or construction-related disciplines like building services, building engineering, civil engineering. And if your students are interested in like conventional engineering subjects, they can subscribe to, enroll to the engineering programs. So, we have different subjects like aviation, biomedical, computing, and all traditional engineering subjects. of course, well, students coming not just to study well, engineering or business subjects. We want them to have a broad development. So that's why we have the humanities to help them develop some other areas like language, culture, and communication. Although we don't need to use Chinese or Cantonese or Mandarin in the city. It's good for them to learn. It's good for them to know a little bit about other Asian languages or European languages if they want to develop their career, well, outside Hong Kong or in other parts of the world. So we have the health and social sciences. Well, in Hong Kong, we have 8 institutions, but we try, well, to have some differences. So we try to have different subjects in different institutions. So this is the unique one, that we're the only institution in Hong Kong that offer this allied health subjects, like the rehab science, the optometry, physiotherapy. We have one of the best design school in Asia. And we have hotel and tourism management. And well, we have our own teaching hotel. If in the future you will come to Hong Kong, well, just get my card and let me know you'll visit Hong Kong, and I will, well, help you to book a room in our teaching hotel and then let you experience, well, the services. It's, well, run by, well, an individual, well, group of experts. But we'll have a lot of PolyU students working there as intern to really learn how to run a hotel and how to run this hotel business. So before I talk about all the other opportunities, so first of all, need to know how to get into PolyU first. So we have different nationalities, so we accept different qualifications. So if your student is IB, so it has to got a diploma. If a GCE, so has to got 3 passes in A-level subjects. And well, national board exam has to be 75%. So if they admit or they applied with the national board, he or she need to also have the English exam result as well. So it can be TOEFL or IELTS. But if they apply with IB or applied with GCE, well, it's waived. So just need IB English in one of the IB subjects, and also in the GCE has to have the IGCSE English at a grade, with a grade C in English. So as mentioned by Candy, we offer very generous scholarships for international students. It's a merit base for outstanding students. Well, this year, PolyU, we admitted like 200 international students outside Hong Kong, outside mainland China, outside Taiwan, Greater China. So 80 of them received scholarships. So of course, some of them receive full scholarships, some of them receive partial, some of them receive full tuition waiver. So this is the amount. So the full scholarship will cover full tuition, will cover housing in housing, and will have a living subsidy. And of course, the second tier is the full tuition, and the third tier is the half tuition. So all these scholarships are renewable every year. That depends on the academic result when they're with us. So it's up to 4 years. For the fees and expenses, so I think one thing that you may learn about Hong Kong is one of the cities that very high living expenses, high cost of living. Well, it's true, but what I would say is limited to housing. So if you go to restaurants, if you go to McDonald's, it's one of the cheapest in the world if you compare with the States or compare with Europe. Of course, well, housing is expensive, but how we help them to solve it? So in PolyU, we guarantee 3 years of housing out of 4 years. So the first 3 years with us is guaranteed so that they can enjoy a very cheap housing. So they will stay in a dormitory with another student. So 2 of them will share a room. So the roommate can be a Hong Kong student, can be another international students. So these are all the fees and expense for 1 academic year, which runs from September till May. So we have a very flexible curriculum. So of course, when they come, because right now Hong Kong is a 4-year curriculum, so they will come with study some general university requirement, which includes languages, freshman seminar, leadership courses, and then we'll have the major studies. And most important is that they will have a lot of credits for the minor studies or free electives. which means students can take something that they want. They can create their own program. They can study aviation, and on the same time, they can study business as a minor. They can study computing, and on the same time, study like social sciences. So they can really design their own program, so they can have their own choices. And as you can see, there are, you can see there's a like work integrated education, and this is something that I would like to spend a little bit more time, to talk about it. So we have, on top of the curriculum, so we have 4 co-curricular opportunities for students. The first one is the work integrated education. So as I mentioned, working by doing is one of the principles when we design our program. So what is work integrated education? Simple, it's internship. So all students are required to do internship in order to graduate, no matter how good they do. So even they got all A's in the subjects. If they cannot fulfill the internship requirement, they cannot graduate from PolyU. So all students have to do like, say for example, business subjects, they need to do 300 hours within 4 years. So usually students will spend second summer and third summer. After second year, after third year, they will do the internship. So usually students will spend second summer in Hong Kong, working with a Hong Kong company, and third summer working in an international company outside Hong Kong or in mainland China or in elsewhere, to get the job experience. So you may ask, how can they find the job opportunities? How can they find the jobs? So no worry. Our career center, our faculty will help them find the jobs. So they just need to approach the career center. They just need to approach the faculty office. So we'll have a long list of vacancies. They just need to apply. Of course, we will also provide them with trainings like how to write the CV, how to do the interview, and business etiquettes in order to help them to succeed in the internship. So all internship has to be related to their study, so that they really learn and really practice what they learn in class and really have some real life experience before getting into the industry. So this is some of the companies that offer internships to our students. So another thing is service learning. So our president emphasized that, students coming to PolyU to study is not just to become a professional, to become a leader in the industry, but also become a leader in the society. So encourage them to take like, service learning subjects, so help them to develop the leadership skills and, team up to work with different cultures. The structure is like this. So at the first beginning of the subject, so it's a semester-long subject. So they will look into one particular issue in the world. And then they will use 1 semester long to really read about this, to discuss about it. We'll have some background knowledge for them and how to tackle it, and they will design their own way how to tackle this issue. And then by the end of the semester, they will execute it. So say, for example, a group of hotel tourism management students. One of the project is to look at the rural areas, so rural villages in mainland China, and how to help them to really cope with the poverty. So they visit the villages and help them to set up an ecotourism. So help them to set up like how to use the house to be B&B, convert them to B&B, how to convert the roots of the country, of the rural side to become ecotourism, to help the people there to set up and help them to really fight the poverty. So this is one of the projects that many of our students do. So it can be in Hong Kong, it can be elsewhere. So last year we sent like 1,000 students outside Hong Kong to China, to Cambodia, to Rwanda in Africa, to Vietnam, to do all these kind of projects. So we are also one of the founding universities for this University Social Responsibility Network, which means within this network, we can freely exchange students, let our students to join other service learning opportunities offered by these universities. As you can see, we have different universities like Cambridge, the Clare Hall Cambridge, Tufts University, Manchester, some mainland, and University of Haifa in Israel. So global exposure. So, as Candy said, exchange is one of the opportunities that, University in Hong Kong offers students. So last year we sent out 800 students. This is for majority of the students. But we have some elite programs to help breed the elites, to help them have some special experience. So what we offer them. So we have Oxbridge program. So we have a summer program in Oxford. We work with Oxford, and we send 30 students this year to Oxford. And they will take courses like Advanced English and Environmental Challenges for the 21st century. And they can bring the credits back so that they can, be more relaxed with their semester studies. And we have another program in Cambridge for 8 weeks. And we subsidize 90% of the expenses. So they only need to buy the ticket. And all the expenses, once they land London, will be covered by PolyU. And some students may consider postgraduate studies. So we have the usual research to let them get a taste of research. So we have this research program. So it's, students have to be nominated by departments, and they're allowed to go to top 25 institutions ranking QS or THE world ranking. So duration has to be 6 weeks or more, and we'll give them the subsidy as well. So last year, 10 students, actually this summer, they just returned to PolyU, 5 to MIT and 5 to NTU in Singapore. And I was informed by one of the students that he received a recommendation from one of the MIT supervisor that supervises research, that will have a recommendation for a PhD application. So recommend him to the graduate school to study a PhD in the MIT. So this is a very good opportunity for international students, because some of the schoolmates will go to other universities. So we have this Global Student Project Fund to encourage PolyU students to work with overseas students on some projects, to encourage multicultural understanding, promote intercultural understanding, youth leadership, and global citizenship. So students in PolyU, they connect with their peers overseas, and they can come up with projects, and they apply for it, and we'll give the subsidy. So like we have subsidized one program, a group of PolyU students, they conduct a workshop in Germany to help the refugees there, to help them to learn the German culture. And this coming September, the German students will come to PolyU and work with PolyU students to help the immigrants, the new immigrants in Hong Kong, to learn the Hong Kong, the culture in Hong Kong, the Chinese culture. So this kind of program we strongly support, and we give them the subsidies to fund the students' flight to Hong Kong and all these expenses incurred. So, of course, we also encourage students to take part in the international competition and conferences, because we believe that just stay in PolyU may not be enough. So we encourage them to go out, to interact with students outside Hong Kong, to participate in competitions, to let them share their ideas, to compete with others so that they can polish their ideas. So we have this participation scheme to fund them. So 2/3 of the expenses there's no ceiling. So as far as 2/3 of the participation fee, flight and accommodation, we will give them. So since launch in January, this actually is early this year, over 80 students have applied, and we have funded all of them to various conferences and competitions. So another thing, nowadays not all graduates want to work for companies. A lot of them want to be their own boss and set up their own companies. So we have different opportunities for them to lead the innovation and creativity. So we have a full program. So start from the undergraduate year 1, they can join the Entrepreneurship Society. There's a network so that they can interact with students in Hong Kong and overseas. To learn what is entrepreneurship, come up with ideas. And then we have the Global Student Challenge, which is one of the international competition. Before that, we have the pre-challenge, which is limited to PolyU students, to let them polish their ideas and really compete with other business plans. And then the Global Student Challenge, they will compete with 20, 30 other teams from outside Hong Kong. And then they will have panel of angel investors, academics and business leaders to really read their business plans and really compete with others. And then if they succeed, they can apply for the microfund to really start their company, to really implement their ideas. This is a through train for them to really, from an idea, to really have their own company. So right now, the microfund runs for almost like 9 years, and we have over 200 companies established, and still, until now, 80% is still running. So for the application deadline, so we opened the application portal in early October, and we have 3 deadlines. The early round is late November, main round is mid-January, and extended round is mid-March. The admission is on rolling basis. Earlier they apply, earlier they will hear from us, and higher chance of getting these scholarships. So, well, this is my presentation. Now I'll pass the time to Candy, and thank you very much.
Okay, let's have a quick glance at City University of Hong Kong. Currently, we have a total 22,000 students, including master students and PhD students, out of which about 12,000 undergraduate students. In terms of non-local students, this is also including the PhD master degree students. We have over 4,000. The medium of instruction at CTU is English, and each year we have students from around the world. Currently, we have 350 partners from the world. So we have 1,200 exchange students coming from around the world to study at CTU. If you look at the rankings, CTU is a pretty young university. We are actually only 31 years old. But in the last 10 years, as you can see, CTU is climbing up the world rankings very quickly, from top 200 to now 57th in the world. And in Asia, we are ranked number 7. So in terms of academic programs, as mentioned by Eric, our business school is also AACSB and ACQUIS accredited. And we provide liberal arts and social science programs, science engineering. Creative media is actually one of the unique programs which is only available at City University of Hong Kong among the 8 institutions. And energy environment is a new program which was established in 5 years ago. Law in Hong Kong, there are only 3 universities offering law program. CTU University is one of them. Veterinary medicine, this is really a new school which CTU is collaborating with Cornell University in the US. We are not offering undergraduate degree program yet. And next year, 2017, we will be offering undergraduate program to the local student first. And then I believe starting from 2018 onwards, we will be offering this program to international students. So typically, actually, based on our statistics, students coming from internationally, they typically will study in business-related subjects. I would say, you know, over 50% of the application, they select majors in business, either finance, accounting, or global business. And other, I think, majority of the students from international, they will choose engineering or science majors. In terms of broad subject of engineering, City University of Hong Kong actually ranked number 1 among the 8 institutions in Hong Kong and Taiwan. In terms of scholarships, as I mentioned earlier, we do offer 3 different types of scholarship to international students. So top scholarship basically covers everything, including the student's residence, full tuition fee waiver that covers tuition fee, and I think half tuition is self-explanatory. Same as PolyU, we do encourage students to apply early. So the earlier they apply, the better chance of for them to get the scholarship from us. So follow the line that we presented earlier about the opportunities in Hong Kong. For student exchange program, we have 350 partners around the world. So students can choose at their own wish to go for 1 semester. Currently at CTU, we do offer subsidy to non-local students. Actually, because we are government-funded universities, you know, it's not possible for us to use the government's money to fund non-local students. So typically, we will actually solicit support from donors to actually provide some funding subsidy for international students to go abroad. As I mentioned, apart from exchange students, in terms of short-term international exposure, here is one of the example in 2013. Actually, this is one of the project led by School of Creative Media faculty. But this is a multidisciplinary project funded, majority of funding is supported by the university for students to go to Antarctica. This is still, I think, up to now, among the 8 institutions, City University of Hong Kong is the only institution sending students to Antarctica. So these students from diverse background, biology, chemistry, creative media, liberal arts, they group together and work on some environmental science projects. They create a project by their own, and funding supported from the university and donation. So the student will only pay basically the airfare and some of the living cost, and majority of the funding actually supported by the university. The picture here, this student, she is actually from Mumbai. Typically, I think she joined this program and mentioned that she gained so much in a period of like 2 weeks. She actually compared the lights in Antarctica and also the Tsim Sha Tsui, you know, the skyscrapers, the lighting in Hong Kong. And this is another example. At CTU, we do emphasize creativity. All the undergraduate students are actually required to have their original piece of discovery during their undergraduate education. This is actually one of the projects conducted by one of the students. They use this computer device. They create this pointing device with a computer company. And this was actually presented by the company in a Taiwan Toy Festival. So again, in terms of creating the project, the funding is also funded by the university. In terms of other international exposure, as I mentioned earlier, the University Grants Committee, the funding body, do provide all the 8 institutions with grants. So student-initiated project is one of the project that created, I would say, you know, funded by the University Grants Committee, but actually each of the institutions would execute by their own. So at CTU, actually, we have a project called Resonance, actually that was led by a group of international students. And typically, they actually can get as much as like $30,000 US to work on a project to, you know, integrate local and non-local students. As long as their purpose meets the requirement, the university will fund them. And also, as I mentioned, for students coming to study at the university, at CTU, we do have a lots of cultural and language immersion program with institutions in the UK and US. So students going on this 4 weeks program, these are credit-bearing programs. So the university would fund 60% of the funding, and the student will only need to pay about 40% of the cost. There are also programs, leadership programs like this Global Leaders programs, which will provide opportunity for students on leadership skills. They will have development opportunities elsewhere to have their leadership skill groomed. From the government, there are also actually some other schemes This is from Education Bureau. This is actually from the Ministry of Education in mainland China. So students in Hong Kong actually can get some funding, either from Hong Kong or from the Chinese government, to go to the mainland China for short-term or even longer-term. PhD students are also eligible to have some experience in the cultural language, surface learning and community knowledge as well as other things as well. At CTU, I think Eric mentioned about the student residence. I think we don't have the luxury. CTU is located right at the city center. We don't have the luxury to guarantee all the international students will have the 4 years residence. So we launched this off-campus peer support accommodation scheme. So undergraduate students, particularly I think those students from international elsewhere, they can join this scheme to host exchange students from overseas. So the university will actually pay for the rental for these students to host exchange students from rest of the world. And starting from last year, we actually have this global experience for all, because we don't want the student who has financial difficulties deprived from international exposure. So for this scheme, which international students are also eligible to participate, will give the opportunity for students to have an international exposure. Basically, I think at least 80 or 90% of the funds are funded by the university, and students will only need to pay little bit amount of money for this project. Apart from exchange, short-term exposure, I would like to talk a little bit about a signature program that CTU arranged with Columbia University in New York. This is a joint bachelor degree program. The first 2 years, the student have to come to CTU, and the last 2 years, they go to Columbia. And by end of the 4th year, they will be getting 2 degrees, one from CTU, the other from Columbia. Currently, we have 8 major matched with Columbia, and this program was launched in 2012 as a pilot scheme. So at the very beginning, it's only mathematics and biology major students are eligible, but now we have expanded to 8, and we are working a lot more. So if you have students who are interested in science majors, business economics, psychology, and sociology, they should apply at the entrance to the right major to enable them to, after admission to CTU, to apply to this Columbia program. So in terms of funding, in terms of fees, first 2 years they pay CTU fees, the last 2 years they pay Columbia fees. But currently we do have some scholarships make it available for international students. Even after the 2nd year, they will be getting some funding support from CTU. And Columbia side will also provide some funding, I would say financial aid, as other international students. So now, I think after pilot scheme, after expanded to other majors, I think last year and this year, we are sending around 10 students to Columbia each year. So many counselors actually asked, how many students we are sending. I think at the moment, there is no quota limitation. So as long as we have quality students and they are passing through the interview from Columbia side, and they can go to Columbia. But of course, that program is pretty competitive. So apart from Columbia CTU Joint Bachelor Degree program, we have 2 other programs as well. As I mentioned, before I go to the other programs, I just want to talk about these 2 students. Actually, these 2 are Indian students. They are studying in computer science. They have actually come to CTU and joined the Columbia program. Farham was in Columbia last year, and Arudra is in Columbia. Farham will be studying in Columbia this year. There is another joint degree program in School of Creative Media that we work with Louvain University in Germany. So the mechanism a little bit vary from Columbia side. So the student typically will spend their first 3 semester at CTU and the 4th and 7th semester in Germany. And the last semester they come back to CTU. But for this program, the difference is they pay all the fees to CTU. They don't have to pay the fees in Germany. And we have another program arranged with, John Birch degree program arranged with National Taiwan in accountancy and business economics as well. So same as Lovina University, this is also all the fees the student would need to pay to CTU. There's no need to pay, to the other university. So in terms of internship and employment opportunities, I also wanted to show you the statistics, as I mentioned earlier about Hong Kong. According to our statistics, majority of the students, international students, actually they stay after their graduation. And 45% of the students will further pursue their study in Hong Kong or elsewhere. This is the student that came to CTU and studied in global business management in 2009. She graduated in 2011, and she worked in JP Morgan, I think it's already for almost 3 or 4 years. So this program actually is a very popular program among the international students. It's built in the program. Students will have 2 opportunities to study abroad. One is in Europe or US, the other one is in Asia Pacific region. And Prasan is another Indian student. He graduated in 2013. These two students are actually scholarship recipients. They receive top scholarship from CTU, which means they come to CTU to study with all the funding support from CTU. Parson was graduated in 2013. She was the assistant script writer for Peter Jackson. You may know Peter Jackson because of the movie, Lord of Rings. I think you all know that movie, right? So he was actually the script writer for the movie The Hobbit 3. After that, actually, he was hired by Peter Jackson as a full-time script writer. And currently, he's working in Hong Kong. So I just want to quickly walk through the application process. Similar to other Hong Kong institutions, we start in online application in early November. We do have an early application deadline in December, and there is another deadline in end of February. As I mentioned, do encourage your student to apply early. So scholarship, students do not need to apply scholarship separately because we will make the evaluation, and at the offer letter, we will notify the students on the admission criteria as well as the scholarship amounts they will be receiving. So typically, after students submit the application, it takes about 2 to 4 weeks for us to review. So the application will be reviewed on a rolling basis. So the earlier they apply, the better chance of, they get the spots as well as the scholarships. So in the conditional offer, we actually accept the predicted grades from counselors on international students. So basically, students, they accept the offer, they have to pay a fee and before they can come. So that's all from me. Now, questions. For us, yes. We accept the predicted score. At the admission offer letter, we will give the offer based on the conditional academic performance. And when the actual result comes in, if they meet the requirement and they can come to enroll. If they don't meet the requirement, then their offer will lapse. For the scholarship, the same. In the offer letter, we will indicate.
It's the same in PolyU, so we will issue the offer. It's a conditional offer, so students, once they get the result, need to inform us, and upload the result slip, and then if they meet the conditions, then definitely our colleague will inform them for the registration process. If they miss, so it really depends. If it's a slight miss, maybe may not have the scholarship but still be admitted. But if a bit far, then the offer will lapse.
There will be a huge time gap there. You can apply by November in 2016, and the final result will be out in June 2016 for CBSE schools. So will the university wait till June?
Yes, we'll wait. Yeah, it's quite common even right now for some IB schools. So even they apply like in October or November, we'll wait for them to meet the conditions until like July. Yeah, so it's absolutely fine for PolyU. I think it's pretty much.
Yeah, that's the same for us as well.
So is your requirement for admission based mainly on their grades from 9, 10, 11, or are you looking at
Well, for PolyU, if it's 12 years school, we'll look at 10, 11, and of course 12. And if it's like a 13-year school, will be 11, 12, and 13.
Same as us.
Of course, for admissions, we'll look at the holistic profile of the students, like awards like Olympic, Math Olympic or Physics Olympic awards or any other national awards. So this is for the admissions or any experience that they can elaborate in the interview, or the reflections for their experiences. But for scholarships, it's purely merit-based.
I think at CTU for marketing program, the academic faculty might have a call of like Skype interview with students because they have specific requirements. So like PolyU, we also have this holistic review. So basically, it's the same that we look at academic result primarily, but other elements I think that can make that admission tutor will also take into consideration.
One additional information. So because PolyU has the design school and fashion design program, so if students want to apply for design or the fashion design or design school, they have to submit the portfolio as well on top of the e-application.
What percentage of students complete the undergraduate course successfully?
I think this is a very interesting question. Unlike US institutions, in Hong Kong, I think students come in to study and they graduate. Of course, some institutions may have some specific requirements on certain, like internship requirements or whatever. But most of the students, they can graduate.
The cutoff is very low, 24 in IB. 24 points you are expecting, no? Minimum is 24, right?
Yes. Well, actually, what you see like 24 or GCE A-level, we require like 3 passes. So this is just a minimum. But actually, if they come, the competitive range is much, much higher than this. I can say like for IB score, for different programs, the competitive range is from 33 to 38 out of 45. For GCE A-level, it's like the real minimum is like 3 Bs. So of course, what I show on the screen is the minimum.
So we could take more questions offline because we have to get ready for the next session. Thank you very much, Candy and Eric. As a token of our appreciation from the IC3 Planning Committee, please accept this plaque.
We have some brochures in the front, so if you want to take some brochures, you can come up and pick it with you.